ever since being traded to the Nets, is averaging like 28 a game on 64 true shooting with a 30 usage, which is by far the highest of his career over, I think, these like 23 games. And he took 25 shots against the Jazz the other day, which is by far the most. Actually, not by far. He's taken a couple of 24s, but for sure the most of his career. So how is he doing it? Like, what happened? And how could we have maybe seen this coming? Because at Villanova, Mikal did not look like this. But we can look into what he was and the things that he did do. He was proficient at these little short curl screen pull-up mid-range jumpers where he was elevating over the defense with his height and with his touch. If he had like a dribble, he could stop and hit a little floater. As we're going to talk about, he wasn't like the greatest at creating separation. Like, again, he's very stiff and upright. This defender's right in his face, but ultimately Mikal, bumps him backwards, whether or not that's an offensive foul or not. But his size and length is able to help him get the ball over the GOAT, John Teskey. But this was kind of his game, the little like off-ball curl type scores. Again, we see Mikal not get much separation, but we're going to talk about length and finishing. Length is a strength of Mikal Bridges. He's long as hell, and he was always good at using him to score. Like, again, no separation and a very early ball pickup because the handle was just so weak, but he's able to take long strides and then use this inside hand, his length, to scoop that ball under, basically just like placing it away from any possible rim protectors, and he ends up scoring there. He is going to do this a lot throughout his game at all levels, and I'm thinking that like my new favorite draft heuristic is just like curls, guys who shoot, like wing size guys who shoot curl screens. Like Keldon Johnson was like a monster, like little floater curl guy in college. Devin Booker, Mikal's old teammate, who I'm sure he got stuff from, was awesome on these little curl pull-ups. This was a big part of Devin Vassell's game back at Florida State. Like, there are way more examples. Like, Hero did this, Middleton did this, Tatum did this, and Mikal did this. So maybe just believe in the big dudes who shoot lots of these little shots. So Mikal was obviously like an amazing jump shooter. The threes were one of his main calling cards, like as the 3-and-D guy. I remember the discourse being. He was mostly just like a slight movement, stationary three-point shooter, but what was really impressive was how high his release was and how he was able to get the ball over contests. Like, no matter how close a guy was, how long they were, Mikal was able to get open and find them. And there were some, blossoms of the mid-range pull-up developing as well. He loved to like lean to his left on these drives here. His touch is just so great. We see when he's matched up with a slower-footed big, even at this level, he can kind of get just the separation he needs and pull up over to score. But Mikal, like I said, struggled to get separation again, especially when people were guarding him down. He just could not get by guys, but he had the size and the strength and the ability to pull up over defenders, as well as just really struggling again. Like, when he had the chance to win with his size or his strength, he was able to, but like the handle is not deceptive at all here. He loses the ball initially. Just look how stiff and upright he is. There's no like real change of pace or direction. It's all very static and stationary. And obviously this play ends in a bucket, but the process is not something I consider very good. As well as just not being super comfortable with the ball at times, leading to some untimely turnovers. And like the closeout attacking speed was also, usually underwhelming, where Mikal, he was good at using his length. That didn't work every time when he didn't have the burst or the handle to blow by guys and keep an angle. And this is something we'll definitely keep seeing, and obviously turns the ball over as well there. What Mikal was always really cool at was like this post scoring creation, where in like the mid-ish post, he was really good at getting inside the middle of the paint and scoring and creating shots for himself with his footwork. And again, his length, the finishing craft has always been great. It's always been really, really impressive. And Mikal's able to use his like length and his weird lanky frame to, again, like this is not a great position, picking up your dribble like right here with a pretty closed paint, but he's able to use his length to hop right into the middle and get a nice lefty finger roll there. The finishing, again, he was an awesome finisher in college, an awesome finisher to this day. I think I already included that clip, so enjoy watching it again. But now Mikal is just absolutely eating on these pull-up jumpers, and it's the same kind of thing, but just with a 5+ year advanced handle, which Mikal's handle still isn't anything crazy, but it's enough to get to his spots, to put a little hesitation move on Laurie, who's not the fastest defender, and then he can get to his spot in the middle, rise up that beautiful fadeaway. Ooh, that shot is so pretty. His shot looks so good. Like there was some weird stuff with his shot form early in his career, but man, does his shot look good now. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing to see. Mikal has the ability to just like pull up comfortably over contests again, being able to use this kind of rescreen action, get a switch between the legs cross into a pull-up. It's simple stuff, but Mikal wouldn't have needed a complex handle to get to his pull-up like a small guard might. All he needs is to not lose the ball and to generate just minor advantages so he can go and get to his spots and hit those pull-up jumpers. And Mikal, when he was like pressured in college, as we saw with that clip of the turnover, didn't go well. But now when he's pressured in a similar situation, even I'm even going to scroll back because of the similarities between these clips that I didn't really even notice at the time. But Mikal again drives into like a double-ish team, picks up the ball, turns the ball over just because he's scrambling. Now Mikal has the ability to see that same kind of pressure, but instead he keeps his dribble alive, spins back to the right, gets to about 12 feet, and it's cash. It's beautiful, beautiful development, and I am going to plug my computer in so it doesn't die while I'm recording this. But Mikal has expanded some to pull-up threes now. It's not the most common thing. He's still mostly an off-ball shooter, and as we can see, the handle's still not perfect to create shots like that as he loses it for a bit, but the height, the high release, the touch, all of it makes for, very capable pull-up stuff. And regardless, Mikal is developing that ability to just shoot mid-ranges from anywhere. I love him sprinting to the baseline here, falling out of bounds. The balance is wonderful. And that's where we can kind of be imaginative about things. I feel like I've been more imaginative and positive about prospects development just because you never know where a strength could develop and what it could develop into. As we saw Mikal's awesome balance on his finishes in college, which turned into a really, really important asset for him getting his pull-up jumpers at the next level. There are examples like this all over scouting, but this is just one I find pretty cool as well. I love this quick little snatch. See, simple moves, not a ton of deception or jitter, but they're enough for Mikal to get the space to get his shot up, especially over a smaller defender like Donovan Mitchell, even with a long wingspan. There's just not a ton he can do at that point, especially with the way Mikal has been shooting and just playing in general as of late. As it kind of always has been, his best off-ball shooting weapon is like the high release, the just total ignoring of contests. DeJounte is right in his face here. Like, this is as good as you're going to get. And Mikal is just unfazed and drains a beautiful shot. It's an incredible asset to have as any shooter. And Mikal uses length to release high as well as any shooter in the game right now, in my opinion. There is a little bit of blow-by ability, and this is kind of an expansion of something we saw earlier as well, is when Mikal gets switched onto bigs, his handle is developed to the point where he can use his length and his frame to get around guys. He's not blowing by Jalen Johnson, but he gets lower. The leverage is better than in college. He's still not super flexible and never will be, but this is usable, especially against a weaker on-ball defender. And again, that inside hand, inside foot finish to throw off the timing of the shot blocker there, which is just amazing. And the finishing craft has always been so excellent for Mikal, and such a great thing it is throughout his career. I mean, look at that's probably my favorite Mikal play this season. He just takes Jalen Johnson off of the dribble with hesitation, with patience. He creates an advantage using his patience and his length, gets the N1. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. And I've been thinking over the last couple years about length as a scoring tool, like with Scotty and even Franz, and I think Mikal is another great example of this. Just how valuable length is, especially for scorers who aren't crazy athletes or crazy shooters, even though Mikal is a great shooter. Like, Evan Mobley is not an easy switch, but the off-time kind of short, choppy steps here. Look how he kind of abruptly takes the last two steps, leans into Mobley, but shoots with his inside offhand to, keep that ball as far away as possible from Mobley's shot blocking arms. It's remarkable. Now, the questions for Bridges, obviously, is the shooting sustainable? Is this going to be sustainable? To what extent will it be sustainable? And how much can he continue to improve as an advantage creator? He still has moments where like he just cannot get by someone like Trey because of his lack of burst or creative handling. And the decision making has been a little bit more. I mean, he's never been an incredible passer, always a solid decision maker, and definitely that's still the case. Just a lot more on ball scoring responsibility, it seems. And again, we see an example of here's an example of the flexibility hurting him quite a bit, where he just cannot bend and round this corner. Ideally, you want to get low so you can go straight here. You can go straight to the rim, but because Jalen Johnson can force Mikal kind of around in a more circular path, there is no advantage created, and he ends up getting blocked on a three. That was a sick play by Jalen Johnson, and I forgot that he made that shot. But point being, with the flexibility, and we've seen in some games like when they have really like strong, fast, lengthy defenders like Bam, they've given Mikal some trouble. But overall, like the stuff that Mikal has been doing is unbelievably good and cool. And I'm very excited to see how he continues to grow and develop. And like, I don't know if even his most staunch supporters would have seen this coming out of college, like this kind of on-ball creation from him. And I think it just goes to show that this scouting thing is hard, and anything can really happen, especially with stars.